What's up, everyone? It is David Smith, aka Armchair Commentary, here from Great North Sports with the NFC playoff picture. And the 2025 NFC playoff picture is an absolute madhouse. Seriously, forget everything you thought you knew. With just a few weeks left, the entire conference is a tangled mess of desperate teams, confusing tiebreakers, and scenarios that are more chaotic than ever. We've got about a half dozen teams all fighting for what feels like two, maybe three spots. One wrong move could send a division leader tumbling right out of the postseason. Today, we're breaking down every single path to the playoffs for every team on the bubble. By the end of this, you'll know exactly who to root for and against, and who's secretly holding all the cards in this wildcard race. All right, let's soak in the chaos as it stands right now. Heading into week 13 at the top, things are pretty clear. The Rams are 9-2 and look like the team to beat for that coveted number one seed. The Philadelphia Eagles are sitting at 8-3, hungry for another deep playoff run, and after that, it is pure anarchy. Your current division leaders are the Bears at 8-3 and the Buccaneers, who are holding on for dear life at a flimsy 6-5. And then you get to the wildcard teams. The Seattle Seahawks have the first spot at 8-3. The Green Bay Packers are right there at 8-3-1. And the San Francisco 49ers are clinging to that seventh and final spot with an 8-4 record. On the outside looking in, you've got the 7-5 Detroit Lions, the 6-5-1 Dallas Cowboys, and the 6-6 Carolina Panthers, all clawing at the door. That's 7 teams separated by just a couple of games, all fighting for the last few playoff spots. And this is where it gets crazy. So let's break it down team by team. Let's start in the NFC South, which is shaping up to be a two-horse race to the finish. The Buccaneers are technically leading the division at 6-5. Their grip on that fourth seed is anything but secure. They've been struggling, losing 4 of their last 5. That has opened the door for everyone else. The red zone offense has been a huge problem, converting only 50% of their trips, just near the bottom of the league. For the Bucs, the path is simple. Just win the division. They have a very friendly remaining schedule with games against the Cardinals, Saints, and Falcons, but the whole season comes down to their 2 games against the Panthers in weeks 16 and 18. Projections give them a decent shot to win the South, maybe around 60 or 70%, mostly because of that soft schedule. But if they slip up, especially against Carolina, they could find themselves not only just losing the division, but being out of the playoffs entirely. The NFC wildcard is way too crowded for a 7 or 8 win Bucs team to feel safe. And what about those Panthers? At 6-6, they're just breathing down Tampa's neck, and after a rough Monday night loss to the 49ers, their path got a lot tougher. For them, the mission is crystal clear. Win the NFC South, and it is by far their most realistic shot. The wildcard is a long shot with how many 8-win teams are already ahead of them. The season for them boils down to, again, those games against Tampa. If they can sweep the Bucs, they'll almost certainly take the division. But here's the chaotic part. Their schedule outside of those games is brutal. They'll have to face the red-hot Rams and Seahawks. Analytics give them only about a 30% chance to win the division, mostly because of that killer schedule. Injuries are also starting to pile up at the worst possible time. Every single game from here on out is a must-win for Carolina. Now, let's talk about the absolute bloodbath in the NFC North, starting with the leaders, Chicago Bears. At 8-3, they are currently holding the 3rd seed in the conference. First-year head coach Ben Johnson and second-year quarterback Caleb Williams have totally turned this franchise around. But their lead is razor thin. The Packers just a half game behind. The simple path for Chicago is to just keep winning. They control their own destiny, but that's where the simplicity ends. Their remaining schedule is a murderer's row. They still have to play the Eagles, the Niners, the Lions, and the Packers twice. That is one tough remaining schedule, and it's one of the toughest in the entire league. Because of that gauntlet, some playoff models give them less than 40% chance to win the division, even though they're currently in first place right now. The more likely path is a fight for a wildcard spot. 2 more wins gets them to 10, which should be enough, but nothing in the NFC is guaranteed. And that leads us to the first team on the outside looking in, the Detroit Lions, who after a heartbreaking Thanksgiving loss to the Packers are now at 7-5, sitting in the 8th spot. Getting swept by Green Bay was absolutely devastating for their tiebreaker scenarios. It basically means they have to finish with a better record than the Packers outright. No ties. Their path to the playoffs has become incredibly narrow. Their division chances have tanked to below 10% in some models. So it's all about the wild card. At 7-5, they are a full game behind the Niners for that final spot. They still have to play the Rams, which is a monster matchup, and their hopes hinge on winning their more manageable games. They need a lot of help. They need teams ahead of them, like the Niners and the Seahawks, to start dropping some games. Projections give the Lions around a 40 to 50% chance of squeaking in, but their margin for error is officially gone. They pretty much have to win out and pray for chaos above to get them in. Now let's move to the current wildcard holders, starting with those Seattle Seahawks. At 8-3, they hold the 5th seed and the top wildcard spot. In almost any other division, they'd be first place, but they have the misfortune of sharing the NFC West with the 9-2 Rams. Their path is pretty straightforward. Win 2 more games, and they're almost certainly in. Projections give them a probability around 70% of making it. But here's the fun part. They want more than just a wild card. They still have a shot at the division, and they've got a Week 16 showdown at home against the Rams that could decide the NFC West. If they can handle their business elsewhere, they have a decent shot. However, their schedule is tough, with games against the Colts, the Niners, still waiting in the wings. They've already lost to both the Rams and the Niners once, which hurts them in the tiebreaker department. So while their playoff spot looks pretty safe, their seeding is completely up in the air. They could be a scary 5 seed, or they could stumble into a much tougher road matchup. Now for the team holding on to that 7th and final spot, the San Francisco 49ers. Sitting at 8-4 after that big Monday night win over Carolina, they have survived an injury-riddled season and are somehow still in control of a playoff berth. For them, the formula is simple. Keep winning. Winning solves everything. They have about a 60% chance of making the playoffs, but their schedule is unforgiving at best. They still have to face the Bears in a game with massive wildcard implications. The chaotic scenario for the Niners is a loss or two down the stretch. At 8-4, they are just 1 game ahead of the 7-5 Lions. A single loss could knock them right out of the playoff picture. They don't hold many head-to-head tiebreakers over the other bubble teams, so they can't really afford to finish with the same record as the Lions or the surging Cowboys. That high playoff probability is a little misleading. It assumes they'll take care of business. If they falter, though, they may be in the shakiest position of the current playoff teams. What about those Dallas Cowboys? After a huge Thanksgiving win over the Chiefs, they are now 6-5-1 and have clawed their way back into the conversation. Their playoff chances more than doubled in the last week, but it's still an uphill battle. Their most likely path is the wild card, since the Eagles have a strong grip on the NFC East. And at 6-5-1, they're chasing both the 8-4 Niners and the 7-5 Lions. The path for Dallas requires a strong finish and a whole lot of help. They probably need to win at least 4 of their last 5 games to get to 10-6-1. That tie against the Packers could end up being a fascinating wild card, since it prevents them from finishing with the same record as most other teams. The remaining schedule is tough, with games against the Lions and Chargers, and realistically they need to get hot and have both the Niners and Lions stumble. It's a long shot, but their recent 3-game winning streak has given them a sliver of hope. Now, there is one team that is currently in the secret driver's seat. And that team is... Do I want to guess? No. After looking at all this chaos, there's still one team secretly in the driver's seat, and even though they aren't leading their division, that team is the Green Bay Packers. Right now, they are the 6th seed at 8-3-1 after their huge Thanksgiving win. Their playoff probability skyrocketed to over 85%, and some models give them a 55% chance to win the NFC North. Here's why they're in such a great spot. First of all, sweeping the Lions. That is a massive tiebreaker. Second, the tie against the Cowboys means they can't finish with the same record as many other wildcard contenders, which helps them avoid messy tie-breaking scenarios, and most importantly, they still play the division-leading Chicago Bears twice. They completely control their own destiny for the NFC North crown. And if they win both of those games against Chicago, the division is very likely theirs. Even if they split with the Bears, their path to a wild card is much cleaner than the teams behind them. While everyone is focused on the mess below, the Packers quietly maneuvering for a division title and home field playoff game. So there you have it. The NFC is a pressure cooker. The South is a 2-team race. It's going to come down to the wire. The North is a 3-team war zone where the first place team has the hardest road ahead. And the wild card is a total free-for-all, with teams like the Niners, Lions, Cowboys separated by a thin margin. Every single week, every single game is going to shift this landscape dramatically. That's just my breakdown. I want to know what you think. Who's going to grab those final spots in the NFC? Which division leader is going to collapse? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.